Rosette and Seymour from Blue Dwarf. Podcast voiced by David Ball. Original post written by Andy Jones on March the 9th, 2011. Seymour and Rosette were thrown against the wall as the lift was caught in the explosion and tilted to one side. It ground to a halt with the sound of grinding metal tearing a large gash in the side wall. Seymour screamed as the lift car rocked, showing a long drop down the lift shaft. They could feel the cables snapping one by one. At any moment they would fall to their deaths. "You had to say something, didn't you?" Rosette yelled as she grabbed hold of the safety rail in the lift with one arm and held Seymour's arm with the other, saving him from falling through the giant hole in the lift to his death at the bottom of the lift shaft, where the fire still burned. "How was I supposed to know someone was listening?" Seymour asked, taking another swig of his wine bottle he had in his hand. His last one, as the trolley had contained everything he owned, and his house fell to the bottom, the alcohol only serving to feed the fire even more, not that it needed any more feeding. "Drop that wine and climb up me. I'm not strong enough to pull you up. I'm barely holding on as it is," she yelled, prompting Seymour to start climbing. "I don't know why I'm still climbing. I should just jump," Seymour moped, stopping for a moment while he had his arms around Rosette's waist, freeing up a hand to grab hold of the railing with more strength. "Don't talk like that. You used to be the captain of the ship. Being an ambassador isn't the only thing you can do," Rosette snapped, edging her way along the safety rail with Seymour in tow, until he could get off her and climb back onto the remaining part of the lift. "And now I don't have anything left," he said, peering down the gap at where the last of his belongings had landed and been incinerated. Without the weight of Seymour pulling her down, Rosette easily lifted herself up and swung back, sitting into the more secure, more solid side of the lift. "Don't whine about it, Seymour. You've lost far less than you realise. You're still where you're meant to be, regardless of what people say. Everyone in the ship, most of the people on the ship," she corrected herself, "would stand by your side and help you out. When I lost everything, I only had me. I had to dig into my trust fund to get anything, and now that's all gone," she said. "But I've lost my job, my daughter, my home," Seymour wailed, causing Rosette to clench a fist and resist the urge to punch him. "I owe you anyway. I've got space in my place for you to stay," she said, which was true, because she'd been given some decent quarters on her promotion to Chief of Security, a badge which she was wearing now. "You'd do that for me?" Seymour asked, but was thinking in his head about how messy it would be, considering how she'd behaved when he'd put her up. "It's better than what I've got now." "I never told anyone how I got to be here," she said, grabbing onto the side of the lift and keeping Seymour steady as the lift groaned and slipped an inch or so in its mountings. "It might give you some perspective if nothing else," she said, waiting for the movement of the lift to stop. "I used to live in London, in a huge house with more rooms than I had friends. It was just me, my parents and all of our servants, helpers and visitors," she said, starting off. "You had servants?" Seymour asked. "I've always dreamed of being waited on hand and foot. None of the ruffians here took me seriously." "That's because you milked it for all it's worth. You just assumed you should be posh because you were an ambassador," Rosette quipped back. "Anyway, that was years ago. A gang moved into the area and started tearing apart the houses, stealing everything and building up a bigger and bigger gang. We hired bodyguards, we had armed men stood on the balconies at all times watching out for the thugs. We didn't even notice when they'd been shot. Before we knew it, the gang was at our door, knocking it down." "You didn't lose a daughter then, so you still don't know what it's like," Seymour said, obviously not paying a huge amount of attention to it. "I lost my smegging parents when I was a teenager, you peasant!" Rosette yelled back, breathing heavily. "I lost everything I'd ever known in one moment," she said, quietening down long enough to hide her face in her knees. This recording is a work of fiction and is in no way endorsed, approved, or even liked by the creators of Red Dwarf. If you want to know more about Blue Dwarf, go to bluedwarf.co.uk.